Hey guys, it's G. So this is the second video in a series of videos where I document some of the larger paintings that I'm making for an exhibit. And in the first part of this video, I showed you how I mixed my paints for this painting. I'm going to be doing a swipe technique with silicone oil, and then I'm going to freehand paint over it when it's dry. So if you haven't seen that video, or if you want the exact recipes for this painting, do check that out. It's the video that I posted right before this one. So I've taken those colors. I haven't added silicone oil yet. I'm just creating a sort of base layer gradient on the canvas that has paints without silicone, because when silicone oil gets on the layer that's directly touching the canvas, it has a habit of leaving craters. They're hard to fix when the painting is dry, and they're generally gonna give you trouble because you want to clean the silicone oil off, and if it leaves craters, you're gonna get basically blank spots on the canvas where you can see through the paint all the way down to the white of what would be the gesso. It's also a good idea to even out your sides and get the drip falling off the side, because when you swipe, usually the bulk of the paint remains towards the center. Okay, now the mid yellow. The colors I've used here are violet, brilliant red, magenta, and a mid yellow. I find usually that swipes have the least paint around the edges and the corner, and I generally feel like you can minimize that by keeping the majority of your paints towards the center and just spread it out with a palette knife or with some sort of swipe tool towards the outer edges. Okay, that looks good. I'm just gonna cap off this bit with a little bit more violet and then add my swipe color, which is the color that I'll touch with a piece of paper and pull across the canvas. That will go on last. So now I'm gonna introduce a little bit of silicone oil into all the colors. Now that we have paint without silicone oil touching the entire canvas, now I'm gonna create another second layer of each color and have it cross over the rest of the colors, basically to make sure that there's a lot of intermingling between paint that has silicone oil and paint that doesn't, for maximum cells when we introduce heat later. Now, I haven't put a lot of silicone oil, but I did stir the silicone oil a lot, and if you've ever seen how oil particles break up into water, you could actually try this. It's an interesting thing to see. If you just put a cup of water and a drop of whatever vegetable oil or olive oil and stir the cup and look at what happens to the oil, that's pretty much what happens to silicone. So now everything I've drizzled has silicone, but none of it is actually directly touching the canvas, so we prevent the crater situation from happening. I do want to get some paint on the sides, because if we don't put any of the silicone paint on the sides, we are going to have a negative space area without cells. I want to control the negative space with freehand in the next video, so I basically want cells everywhere on the canvas. Now the swipe color actually doesn't have silicone. It's going to cross over all the other colors that have silicone under it, and it's best to have the silicone, I find, at the bottom, not at the top. Not actually at the full bottom, but like I prefer that look to swiping with a silicone color. If you're wondering what the strange thing I'm holding is, I just took a kitchen roll and taped a couple of pieces of A4 paper to it. I personally like dry printer paper as a swipe tool. As you can see, save for that maybe last bit, it usually swipes quite well. Now you can already see cells popping up, and if I were to leave it, it would probably, they would appear over time, but we're just gonna speed this up with a little bit of heat. So I prefer to tilt first before introducing the heat. That way you get minimal interruption to your cell structure from tilting. Tilting kind of warps cells around a little bit. I'm just gonna swipe over this little bit again. And yeah, I'm gonna tilt off. I prefer to just tilt off in one plane. I don't like to do directional tilting to the corners, but it becomes necessary towards the end. And basically, if you think about it, that first bit, those first couple of inches on the canvas, there weren't going to be any cells there. We've drained most of the excess. The side on the left doesn't have excess, remember, because we accounted for the fact that paint was going to move in that direction. And now finally the best part, introducing heat. So it might not look like it, but I am generally thinking about the composition because I do have some idea of what I want to paint over this. So you can see there are parts of the canvas that I've intentionally tried to not smother in cells, just because I think it'll complement what I'm going to paint over this in the next video, which you should definitely check out because this is where it gets really, really interesting. And now I'll put on some music and we can watch these cells grow together for a couple of minutes. And here she is. Let's go in for a close-up and check out these cells. There are so many from stirring the silicone in a lot. And when I zoom in now, you see there's a lot of tiny ones in there. So yeah, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think I'm going to paint over this. And don't forget to check out the next video that comes out. We're going to be painting over this painting. And yeah, this was G. See you in the next video.